Okay, so let's see what we've got. Let me open up Matinee real quick. What we have is camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3, and each one is kind of doing its own thing. And what I want to do is I want to take these three cameras and basically stitch them together to make one long awesome video game cinematic. And basically the way it's going to work is I want camera 1 to do its thing, play through its animation. I want camera 2 to do its thing, play through its animation after camera 1 is finished. And then I want camera 3 to do its thing and play its animation after camera 2 is finished. So it'll be camera 1, go when you're done, camera 2, go when you're done, camera 3, go and do your thing, and then boom, our game cinematic is over, mission accomplished. So how in the world do I do that? Well, with Matinee we have something called Director that allows us to do just that, and it's a pretty cool feature of Matinee. And the way it works is pretty simple. So instead of explaining a bunch of stuff, let me just show you. I'm going to right click, and when I right click an empty space over here, like under camera 3, you'll get this list. Remember we were creating camera groups before? Now we're going to create a new director group. So I'm going to click on that, and a new tracks window pops up on the top with a director group up here. Alright? Now there's nothing attached to the director group. It's not an actual object per se. Over here we were connecting cameras to these different groups. Over here we're not connecting a camera. So it's not an actual object. The way to think about this director group is, let's pretend there's a little spirit of James Cameron inside of Unreal, and he's going to go ahead and control all of the playback of our cameras and sequence them the way that you want. So our little James Cameron here is going to help us out. So here's our director, and the way this works is pretty simple. You select the director track here, right? And at the beginning of this animation here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter to create a keyframe. And what you're going to get is this little window that pops up, and you have three options. You can create a keyframe for camera 1, a keyframe for camera 2, and a keyframe for camera 3. Now, it doesn't matter what order you go into. That depends on your artistic vision and how this whole cinematic is going to go together. But I've already explained that what I want for the purposes of this tutorial is for camera 1 to go first, do its thing. Camera 2 will go second, do its thing. When it's finished, I want camera 3 to kick in, and I want it to do its thing. Okay? So the way this works is pretty simple. I'm going to select camera 1 and then click OK. And that's going to create this keyframe here, and then you're going to see this bar that says camera 1, and it's going to say shot 0010, and it's going to go on forever, this bar. And what this bar, this keyframe means, it means that at 0 seconds, which is basically at the beginning of our cinematic, camera 1 is going to be the camera that's visible to the player when you play this Matinee. Alright? So it's the equivalent of doing this. Let me tear this off, and let me move this down a little bit so we can actually see. So here's camera 1. Remember this little gray camera icon on the right? Remember what happens when we click it? If we click it, camera 1 takes over. Remember that? Okay. If we click camera 2 takes over. If we click camera 3 takes over. So it's basically what the director's doing, our little James Cameron. He's switching between these cameras based on these keyframes up here. So in this first yellow keyframe, we're going to have camera 1 kick in. Because this goes on forever, camera 1's going to control everything forever. That's not what we want. So what we want is, if we look at camera 1 animates until about 4 seconds. So let me collapse these other cameras so it makes more sense. If we look at camera 1 here in the track view, it starts off at 0 seconds and it looks up. We could see in the viewport it looks up at the sort of skylight opening in the cave ceiling, and it ends at exactly 4 seconds. So camera 1's whole shot is 4 seconds long. Okay? So that means that at 4 seconds we should probably have camera 2 kick in and start off from there. So camera 1 goes from 0 seconds to 4 seconds. Camera 2 starts at 4 seconds and, well, goes on for however many seconds that is. We just have to figure out what that is. So let's collapse camera 1. Let's go to camera 2. Let's actually view everything from camera 2's viewpoint, and let's kind of scrub through the timeline. And if I move this up so we can see the preview down in the bottom, and my preview's gone. Okay, anyway, if we scrub through this, we'll see that this animation ends at about 8 seconds in. So this one, camera 2, is 8 seconds long. So it's going to start at 4 seconds and go 8 seconds, which is probably going to be 12. Math is not my strong suit, so forgive me if I make some crazy math errors, but I'm not good at math. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to take the movement tracks here, or movement keyframes for camera 2, and we're going to move this stuff over 4 seconds. So we can see the red tick marks here for camera 1. Starts off at 0, ends at 4. This one will start at 4 and end at 12. But you know what? Instead, I'm going to move it 1 more second up. So we're going to move it to about 5 seconds. So camera 1 starts at 0, ends at 4 seconds. We'll have 1 second of buffer in between. So at 5 seconds, 1 second later, camera 2 will begin for 8 seconds, and it'll end at 13 seconds. And this is where camera 3 is going to pick up and do its thing. So let's go to camera 3. Let's take all of its keyframes. And we're going to move all of these keyframes over.